So, just how well does Phrolova perform without Cantarella or Roccia? Is she still strong and viable on her own? That's exactly the point of today's video, showcasing her true free-to-play potential as the only 5-star on the team. So let's kick things off with my build, which is actually pretty standard, using the only free-to-play 5-star rectifier, Cosmic Ripples. As you see, it not only has attack as a substat instead of crit rate, its energy regen is also wasted since Phrolova doesn't use energy at all. And the last basic attack damage isn't very useful either, as most of the damage are considered skill and echo damage. So yeah, it's pretty obvious that it's significantly weaker compared to her signature weapon. But even so, I'll still put Cantarella above her signature in terms of priority, simply because her impact on Phrolova is even more game changing, and you'll see why very soon. Anyway, now when it comes to her echo, the newest edition Drink of the Lost grants a 20% crit rate bonus when you are at 0 energy. And guess what? Phrolova is the only character who never uses energy like I say, meaning that she stays permanently at 0. Such a genius idea. I absolutely have no clue how they came up with it. Very creative. Well, anyway, unlike every other set, this one just needs 3 pieces to activate its effect, which is honestly amazing as you can mix it with any other Havoc 2 pieces you already own, massively reducing the grinding needed. Even lingering tunes which used to be worthless becomes viable now, which is a nice alternative if you have been holding onto them for a while, so don't hesitate to make use of them. As for the forte, basic attack, circuit, and liberation are all equally crucial and important for free-to-play Phrolova, so do your best to mess them out. Skill and intro are pretty good to have, but not necessary. Leaving them at level 8 is more than enough. Alright, so now let's talk about her kit, which looks really complicated at the first glance, but she's actually brain dead easy to play. Seriously. As mentioned earlier, she doesn't use energy at all, so instead, you have to build out 6 of these charges to activate her liberation. All you have to do is to start with double E, followed by spamming the basic attack non-stop, and use your resonance skill once again when it lights up. Very quick and simple. By the way, different actions give different color charges, but ultimately it doesn't really matter, as they only affect the properties of your attack later, not the actual damage. Once fully charged, do a special heavy attack, and this will allow you to transform with her liberation. At this point, just keep spamming the basic attack once again and enjoy the show in the sky. Yeah, that's how simple her playstyle is. That said, the minion you're controlling still takes the damage normally, so you might just die from it if you're not paying any attention. Anyway, here comes the interesting part, because unlike other main DPS units, staying on field while transformed isn't really a great idea, since her damage output is actually pretty low. On the other hand, she actually stays on field even after switching, continuously dealing damage on her own. So basically, in other words, to make the most out of her, you'll have to play her as an off-field DPS as well. But unfortunately, for some reason, her basic off-field damage is pathetically low to the point that it might as well not even exist. Besides, it's not even considered coordinated attack, so if you're thinking of playing her with Jin C, well, don't bother, as Cantarella's the one you actually need. Anyway, speaking about this lady, you have seen how weak Phrolova's off-field damage is, right? Well, that's not the whole story, because she does have another much stronger source of off-field damage, which unfortunately half of it is pretty much tailor-made for Cantarella only. Long story short, this damage of Phrolova only triggers through echo skills, and Cantarella is the only character whose attacks are mostly treated as echo skills, so that's one point. And to make things even worse, they even added a strict rule that each echo can only trigger it once, just so you can't take any advantage of echoes with multiple users. So yeah, that's why in my opinion she's even more crucial than Phrolova's own signature weapon, otherwise you are pretty much saying goodbye to half of her kit, which feels really bad, exactly why they rerun her in the second half. By the way, one last important thing to remember, once you switch her out, do not switch back in, as it will end her transformation earlier, just like Shakona stopped singing halfway, so be careful about that when playing her, especially if you are playing her with Cantarella. As for the rest of her kit, like for example her passive skills, they are just pure damage boosts that don't require any specific action, so not much to say there. Now just before choosing her teammates, here's something very crucial for you to know. most of the attacks before transforming are treated as skill damage, whereas everything after transformation becomes echo damage, in which nothing except Havoc damage can buff it. That's why Havoc damage buffers are more preferred choice as her second teammate, namely Cantarella, Roccia, and Danjin. And since all of them are Havoc damage dealers, they also benefit from Phrovova's outro in return, creating a very nice synergy. That's why Havoc Rover might be a solid choice as well, which I'll be showcasing later. Alternatively, we can go for the skill damage buffers, namely Cantarella once again, along with Zhe, Taoqi, and Lumi. And of course, let's not forget our Showkeeper and Verlina, who permanently boost all types of damage for the whole team. A perfect choice for your last teammate. So there you have it, her team build basically comes down to who you choose as the second teammate. Though it's pretty clear that Cantarella stands out as the only best option, being able to buff both skills and Havoc damage simultaneously, triggering Phrovova's off-field damage and even provides healing on top of everything else. So yeah, I would say she's like Lupa to Bland, or Chacona for Katidia, a strong and crucial teammate, but luckily not to the extent of Phoebe to Zani, where the latter feels borderline unplayable without the former, so absolutely bring her along if you already got her. Now aside from Cantarella, Roccia is obviously her next best option, which is yet another limited 5-star Havoc unit. Thankfully she's not nearly as crucial as Cantarella as compared to 4-star Danjin. She's provided the extra 200 attack and enemy grouping, which might be even less impactful than the Phrovova's nature, and is a lot cheaper too. But considering she's able to fully benefit from Phrovova's outro, as well as being incredibly useful in overall exploration, I'd say maybe try a soft PT for her. But don't forget, Cantarella always comes first for Phrovola. On the other hand, if you already have Cantarella and you're now thinking of pulling Roccia to complete Havoc team, well personally I don't think it's necessary, simply because Showkeeper is just as strong for that, possibly even better. Unfortunately, I can't really demonstrate it for you myself, as I don't have Cantarella on this account yet, so hopefully you'll take my word for it. Well anyway, like I said at the very beginning, we are focusing on Phrovova's free-to-play potential, so let's take a look at the more free-to-play friendly teams without limited 5-star units, starting with Taoqi and Lumi as both are on the same banner as Phrovola. Between the two, I would say Taoqi is better, not just because she's a Havoc unit, but also her buff lasts 4 seconds longer than Lumi, meaning that you have more time to deal damage. Well anyway, since both of them only buff skill damage, the most effective way to play this team is to stay in the basic form as long as possible, and only transform when your buffs run out. Then immediately switch to other characters to start your next rotation. Do not stay on field in the transform state, as you only decrease your damage output. Well in any case, even though my Taoqi is just level 1, I still managed to clear this boss with this team, so I would say Phrovola is actually pretty decent for free to play. Meanwhile, if you're already playing for some time, Danjin is the best 4-star support you can go for. Not only does she provide Havoc damage for Phrovola, but she also makes a solid DPS of herself with Phrovova's outro, especially as disease. Most importantly, she's much more smoother to play than Taoqi, especially the speed on generating the outro energy. Though as trade-off, she's very easy to get one shot, as she drains her own life buff damage. So if you're willing to put some effort into building a 4-star DPS, I'm pretty sure she's better than Taoqi for Phrovola. But if you don't, well basically it looks like this footage here, which is actually slightly weaker than Taoqi. By the way, after trying out with Danjin, I thought to myself, why not give Havoc Rover a shot too? She is essentially a stronger version of Danjin, just without the Havoc damage outro, and since I already have her well built on this account, I might as well showcase her here, which might also give you a decent idea of Danjin team when fully built, since both teams are pretty similar. All in all, this is one of the teams where I've had the most success, beating the boss significantly faster than any other 4-star units. So if you've got a well-built Havoc Rover, pairing her with Phrovola is definitely a solid option. However, there's just one thing that keeps bugging me while playing this team. I couldn't help but feel that Havoc Rover was stealing all the spotlight, as Phrovola is taking more of a supporting role in this team. And once that hits you, it's really hard not to think, why not just pull Roccia instead? She's simply the better support for Havoc Rover. So yeah, that's the thing you have to bear with. Alright, now, although I didn't include Sanhua in the earlier team build session, I can already see some of you pairing her with Phrovola, simply because she's the strongest 4-star support. So I figured I'll show it and explain why it's not the best idea. But to my surprise, it's actually on par with Taoqi, probably just because her auto is so damn fast to the point that it actually makes up for not having a damage buff. Otherwise I can't explain why this is happening. Well, anyway, having another viable team is always good, so I can't complain. Speaking of quick auto recharge, it reminds me of Phrovola, so I decided to try this double healer team just for fun. And as you guessed, yeah, it works pretty well too. All the buffs are permanent and work on all types of damage, so you have quite a freedom of arranging your rotation. But of course, since healers are rare and valuable in this game, using both in one team might be a bit of a luxury, unless your other team doesn't really need one, like with Kaditya or Brand. Alright, we've finally reached the end of the video, so here's what I think overall. Just from my personal experience so far, even though half of the kit is locked behind Cantarella, she's still a very solid DPS for free to play. As you have seen, even with just level 1 4-star teammates, she's still capable of killing the hardest content in this game, and it only gets easier if you pull her signature or her best teammates like Shopkeeper. So if you really like this character and were worried about she will be unplayable without a full Havoc team, well, rest assured, she's pretty fine even without them. Well, at least for now. Anyway, that's about everything for this video. So what's your experience with her? Let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching and I'll be seeing you in the next one.